The US military is set to begin enforcing a maritime blockade on Iran at 20 GMT. That's less than an hour from now. Well, the blockade will cover Iran's ports, oil terminals, affecting all vessel traffic, regardless of flag. Washington's move comes in response to Iran's closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which has disrupted Gulf countries' oil exports. Well, military analyst and former US Army Major Mike Lyons joins us now live from New York. A warm welcome to the NewsHour. So in this latest move, is it designed to deter Iran, degrade its military capability, or signal a broader strategic shift? What do you think is going on here?
Well, it's first and foremost definitely a new phase. The fact that the amount of military strikes over the past 3 days, over 300, that tells me, while it's not epic fury range of 1,100 a day, it's a very disproportional response. It's just a hit or miss here, and it's along the coastline. It's the taking out the coastal batteries and the capability that Iran has to impact the traffic in the straits. So from a tactical perspective, the United States is being very focused there. The blockade is being put back on for the same reason it was put on in the first place, is to try to choke off revenue that the Iranians are trying to make and keep those ships there. And again, you bring the leverage of the military power with this economic leverage. The United States hopes that the Iranians come back to the negotiating table with more serious about not abiding by the MOU.
And based on what we do know so far, how effective have the latest strikes been?
Well, it's going to be difficult to get them to be 100%, and that's really what the goal is when you think about it. But from their perspective, they can't strike at scale, so they can't send hundreds of missiles and hundreds of drones at U.S. bases in the region at this point. However, the one-off and the asymmetrical capability they have is still there. You get close enough to the coastal line, and the batteries there can still fire upon the ships, just because there's nothing that we have on the other side that can take those missiles out, and because of their proximity. They've got great capability. They've always had it, and it's difficult to get rid of it all. Now, the United States will do what it can. Every missile they fire has a return address, and they'll go after where it came from, but they still have probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of coastal missiles still ready to go, aimed at these ships and aimed at the U.S. assets in the region.
And how vulnerable are American bases and allies in the region following these strikes? And is a plan to create an alternative to the Strait of Hormuz, is that the right option?
That surely is an option that the Saudis pursued years ago, and they've done that. They've got a pipeline going towards the Red Sea that goes in the other direction. I think Oman wants to create a gas pipeline that'll cut off the straits itself. It's too much of a choke point. The Iranians shouldn't be holding the world hostage with this. But the American forces remain somewhat vulnerable, but the air defense systems are all tied together, the countries that are there, the United States, the naval assets in particular. So what gets through is mostly by luck and by chance, but that still doesn't mean that it can't get through the unmanned drones and specifically some of the ballistic missiles that they still have. They still have capability to get through.
And could these attacks, could they strengthen Iran diplomatically by actually increasing international calls for restraint?
The clock has started on that in terms of whether or not they will or not. I just think the rest of the world needs to get with the program here and recognize that Iran is the aggressor at this point, and had an MOU, violated it, and decided that's why the United States had to go back to doing this, and they still remain a state sponsor of terror. So I don't see how it's strengthened diplomatically, especially if the United States can attrit and degrade a lot of their military capability. You saw some of those attacks. I wouldn't say it's civilian infrastructure, it's dual-use infrastructure. We're going to go after more of those kinds of things, railroads, electrical plants, taking out capability that the IRGC has to generate revenue. And I think that's where the race is on. If we can take that out, the coastal batteries out, then the Iranians will be forced to negotiate.
What would concern you most from a military perspective in the coming days?
It's the one-off that gets through, a strike that can be made, get into a ship. We saw them fire a helicopter, shoot a helicopter down, and the pilots were rescued by drones, of all things. But there's always that chance. Commanders expect losses. They just do. They don't. Things don't always go 100%. But right now, it's just been that way with hundreds of strikes, no casualties. But that could change at a moment's notice, and the Iranians could get lucky, get fortunate. But American forces are. very forward-leaning in making sure that they're defending themselves and protecting the force.
OK, Mike, pleasure to have you on the NewsHour. Thank you very much. Military analyst and former US Army Major Mike Lyons from New York.